From Heaven to Hell, the tragedy of Lance Armstrong. There was a time when the name Lance Armstrong didn't just represent victory, it represented hope. He was more than a cyclist. He was a symbol of struggle, survival, and turning the impossible into reality. But what the world didn't know was that behind that inspiring story, one of the most shocking downfalls in sports history was being built. The rise from prospect to legend. Before the world knew the icon, before the titles, fame, and controversy, there was a hungry young man named Lance Armstrong, a childhood marked by determination. Lance wasn't born at the top. He didn't grow up surrounded by privilege or easy paths. Raised by a single mother, his life was shaped by struggle and absence. He quickly learned that nothing in life is given. Everything must be earned. And that changed everything. While other kids played without worry, he developed something different, an uncommon mental toughness. It wasn't just physical, it was mental. That mindset would become his greatest weapon, discovering his talent. His athletic journey didn't begin with cycling, it began with triathlon. At a young age, Armstrong was already competing against adults and often beating them. That wasn't normal. There was something special about him, a mix of endurance, competitive aggression, and an almost inhuman ability to endure pain. But it was when he got on a bicycle that he found his true calling, a different mentality. What separated Armstrong from the rest wasn't just talent, it was obsession. He trained harder, he suffered more, he pushed his body beyond what seemed possible. Where others saw limits, he saw challenges. Where others gave up, he attacked. He didn't race to compete, he raced to dominate. Turning professional. By the age of 21, Armstrong was already competing at the highest level. In 1993, the cycling world took notice when he won the World Road Race Championship. It wasn't just a victory, it was a statement. A young American dominating a sport historically ruled by Europeans. That didn't happen, but it was happening, and his name began to echo around the world. A style that broke the rules. Armstrong wasn't a typical elegant cyclist. He wasn't refined like many Europeans. He was raw power, explosive energy, relentless will. He climbed mountains like he was at war. He attacked without fear, and, most importantly, he respected no hierarchy. To some, he was arrogant. To others, he was the future. But no one could ignore him. Early signs of greatness. Throughout the 90s, Armstrong collected important victories. He won stages, major races, and became a key figure in the international peloton. But he wasn't a legend yet. Not yet. Something was missing. That defining moment, that life-changing event that transforms the good into the unforgettable. The making of a myth. What made Armstrong's rise special wasn't just his talent, it was the story forming around him. The rebellious young star, the American challenging Europe, the athlete who never gave up. It was the perfect narrative, the kind the world loves. And without knowing it, the stage was being set for something much bigger. Something that wouldn't just make him a champion, but a legend. The calm before the storm. By the mid-90s, Armstrong was at the peak of his growth. Strong, recognized, feared. Everything pointed toward him dominating cycling for years. But life had other plans. Because just when his rise seemed unstoppable, everything came to a sudden halt. And what came next would not only change his career, it would change sports history forever. Section closing. The rise of Lance Armstrong wasn't luck. It was discipline, hunger, and an unbreakable mindset. But it was also the beginning of something more complex, darker, and deeply human.
Because sometimes the same qualities that take you to the top are the ones that can push you into the abyss. The hardest blow, cancer. In 1996, just as everything was going right, Lance Armstrong faced a brutal turning point. At just 25 years old, he was diagnosed with advanced testicular cancer. It wasn't a typical case. The disease had already spread to his lungs and brain. The odds were against him. For an elite athlete whose life depended on physical strength, the diagnosis didn't just mean a pause, it meant the real possibility of losing everything. A battle beyond sport. The treatment was intense. He underwent multiple surgeries and aggressive chemotherapy. His once powerful body began to weaken. He lost weight, he lost strength, he lost control. But the hardest part wasn't physical, it was mental. Facing mortality at such a young age is something few can handle. The inner fight. During this time, Armstrong wasn't just fighting cancer, he was fighting fear. Fear of death, fear of never competing again, fear of being forgotten. But his mindset made the difference. The same determination that made him great became his tool for survival. He refused to quit. A turning point. After months of treatment against the odds, he survived, but he wasn't the same. Cancer didn't just change his body, it changed his perspective on life. He returned more focused, more disciplined, and with a new purpose. He no longer competed just to win, he competed because he had survived. More than a comeback. Beating cancer wasn't just a recovery, it redefined who he was, from a talented athlete to a global symbol of hope. And although the world didn't know it yet, this chapter would take him to the top of the sport and eventually to his fall. Section closing. Cancer was the hardest blow in the life of Lance Armstrong, but it was also the turning point that made his story bigger than sport. Because sometimes the toughest battles aren't raced on roads, they're fought within. The comeback, a hero reborn. After defeating cancer, Armstrong returned with a renewed mindset. From 1999 to 2005, he achieved the unthinkable, winning the Tour de France 7 consecutive times. His story became a global symbol of resilience. He was no longer just an athlete, he was an inspiration. He also founded the Live Strong Foundation, helping cancer patients worldwide. The doubts, something didn't add up. Despite his success, questions began to emerge. His dominance seemed too perfect. In a sport known for doping, many wondered if his performance was truly clean. But Armstrong denied everything, repeatedly, and for years, the world chose to believe him. The truth comes out. Investigations intensified, especially by the United States Anti-Doping Agency. In 2012, a detailed report exposed a sophisticated doping system within his team. Testimonies confirmed that Armstrong wasn't just involved, he was leading it. The fall, from hero to villain. The consequences were immediate. He was stripped of his 7 Tour de France titles and banned from professional cycling for life. His reputation collapsed, sponsors disappeared, his legacy was shattered. In 2013, during an interview on The Oprah Winfrey Show, he finally confessed. The truth was out. The price of success. Armstrong's story reveals the cost of unchecked ambition. His desire to win pushed him toward choices that ultimately destroyed everything he built. His success was extraordinary, but fragile. Redemption or permanent fall. Today, Lance Armstrong lives far from his former glory.
Some see a man who made mistakes. Others see a symbol of betrayal. His legacy remains divided. Final reflection, the true meaning of success. His story teaches a powerful lesson. Talent and discipline can take you far, but without integrity, success cannot last. Winning isn't everything,
and losing honesty can cost everything. Closing. From promise to legend, and from legend to downfall, the story of Lance Armstrong is not just about sport, it's about humanity. A reminder that even the greatest can fall, and that true victory lies in how the game is played.